Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope you all gave that last challenge in the last lesson a shot. It's really important that you actually try to do these challenges on your own so that you can grow as a developer. Okay, so if you ran into any snags, that's okay though. We're going to go through the solution here ourselves, and you can either follow along, you can check your code against my code, and hey, if you found a better way of doing it, let me know. All right, so our task was to make it so that when we click on one of our category cells, let me go ahead and run this, that we segue to the products view controller and fetch all of the products in the products collection. I have 2 that I created manually. You may have more or less. But yeah, so that is what we need to do. And at the end of the last lesson, we kind of did a recap looking at the home vc.swift file to see what we needed to do. And the first thing that I think we're going to do is make it so that we can actually initialize our products from the data that we get back from Firestore. So let's go ahead and go into our product.swift, and we're going to create an initializer from a dictionary data. Just like we have here for the category, we're going to do the same thing for the product. So here in product.swift, we are going to create an initializer. So we're going to say init, and our parameters are data, and this is a dictionary of type string and any. And then we need to say name is equal to, and we're going to parse out the data from the results that we get from the Firestore documents. So the key is name, and we're going to cast that as a string. If that fails, we're going to supply a default value of an empty string. ID is equal to data, and its key is ID. And we're going to cast that as a string and supply a default empty string value. Next up, we have our category, and this is the category ID. So category, this is data as a string as well. Supply an empty string as a default value. Next up, we have the price. Price is equal to data. Its key is price, and this one we are casting as a double. And if that doesn't work, we'll set a default value of 0.0. Next up, we have our product description, which is equal to data, and its key is product description. Make sure you have those spelled right, product description, okay, as a string, else an empty string. Then we have our image URL, which is equal to data and image URL. This is a string, and supply an empty string as a default value. We have our timestamp, which is equal to data, and timestamp is the key, and cast that as a, whoops, not a string, a timestamp, and give a default value of a initialized now timestamp. And then finally we have our stock, which is equal to data stock as an int, supply a default value of 0. Whew. Okay, so I know writing these initializers and models is not a lot of fun, but it's what you got to do sometimes. All right, so we have our initializer for our product. Now let's go back into our, let's save that and go back into our products view controller. And the next thing that we want to do is create a listener variable. So I'm going to say var listener is equal to listener registration, and that should not be equal, that should just be a colon. All right, we have our listener. Let's create our database variable as well, db of type Firestore, and then let's initialize our database here in view.did_load. We'll say db is equal to firestore.firestore, and then let's create a function so that we can set up our query. So I'm going to say func setup query, And just like we did over here in home vc.swift, let's see here, right here, we are going to set our listener, set up a snapshot listener. Then we're going to iterate through the document changes and initialize products, and then go through our onDocument change functions for each of those. All right, so let's say here, a listener is equal to, and we're going to need a query. So let's go to our utilities, Firebase plus utils.swift, and we're going to need a new variable here. We're going to call this var products. We're going to return this is actually going to be a collection reference. We're going to say return collection, and that is simply products. This is going to change a little bit in the next couple of lessons once we filter and query in order, but for now, this is fine. I'm going to save that, come back here and say db.products. So we are we've told where to listen, and then we're going to say add snapshot listener, and we have a snapshot. So I'm going to say snap and error. Perfect. Now we can check for an error. We'll say if let error is equal to error, and we'll debug print that. We'll say error.localized description. Otherwise, we can iterate through our document changes. We'll say dot for each here, and we're going to say change in, and then we're going to get the data from each document change. We're going to say let data equal change dot document dot data, and then we're going to initialize our product from that data using our initializer that we just created. So let product equal product dot init and pass in that data. And now we can switch on the change type. So I'm going to say switch change dot type. And then we're going to have our three cases. Remember, we have case dot added, in which case we're going to call our onDocument added function. Let's go ahead and create those. I'm going to do that down here in the UI table view, delegate, and data source extension area. So I'm going to say func onDocument modified. Then we're going to have func onDocument added. I'm going to go ahead and move this one up above, actually. And then we have func onDocument removed. There we go. So now that we have that stubbed out, we can go ahead and add that right here. We'll say self dot onDocument added. Then for our next case, we have case dot modified. We can say self dot onDocument modified. And our final case is case dot removed. And for that, we say self dot onDocument removed. All right, very good. Let me go ahead and just clean up some of this spacing here. And that looks really good. All right, we're gonna finish this one up right here. In the next lesson, we'll actually populate our onDocument change methods. All right, so I'll see you there.